Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and things just keep going downhill for the Jedi Prince series in this episode. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. This time we look at Book 5 in Paul and Hollace Davids' The Jedi Prince series, or the Trioculus Saga, whatever you want to call it. That series made up sort of trilogies that was meant to be 3 trilogies supposedly, but only wound up being 2. A book entitled Queen of the Empire, which should give you a sense that Trioculus must be coming back, because that's what he wanted Leia to become back after seeing her in the Lost City of the Jedi. Again, this is a first print copy of it, so it looks a little different than some of the later ones. Again, it does have the cool Dramatis Personae type thing here with pictures of the characters. It's got the Adventure Continues that summarizes things. It's got a cool little glossary in the back, and it's got artwork interspaced throughout. Same format as all the other ones that we have seen in this series thus far. At this point, it is March 1993. We are 2 months away from The Last Command, the third book in the Thrawn trilogy that'll make it the end of the first completed modern EU trilogy from Bantam Spectra. But we're already on book 2 of the second trilogy of the kids' books through Bantam Skylark here, making this somewhat notable, I guess. But boy, is this a ridiculous book. So, in an interesting concept introduction here, our heroes are at Drapak, the rebel base, the rebel research base on Dagobah, where these 2 scientists, they're both Chadra fans, Fandar and Fugo, F-U-G-O, is showing them a new invention. And by them, I mean the rebel heroes, including Kin, the Jedi Prince, showing them a human replica droid of Leia that they've invented. Human replica droid being kind of supposedly a new concept here, but of course the EU winds up throwing that all out of whack, and there's plenty of human replica droids all over the frickin' place, it seems. But this one winds up malfunctioning, and Izaps, a la Cyclops from the X-Men, one of the Chadra fans, Fandar. So they need to get him some medical help, and it turns out he needs a heart transplant that he has to get on his homeworld of Chad. So Han and Leia take Fandar there, and meanwhile, Mon Mothma's a little bit worried about Triclops, that real three-eyed son, the three-eyed mutant son of Palpatine that they met back on Duro and brought back with them, who seems to have a connection. He's his father to Kin. They're worried because what they figured out is that as he dreams, he has not really visions, but these interesting thoughts, these interesting dreams about fantastical technologies. Apparently some kind of like technical genius or savant, and he has all these cool technical plans in his head, and somehow those are being transmitted back to the Empire through an implant in one of his teeth. Maybe he could block it. He's got a molar that has an implant in it, and that's kind of the thing that crazy people say that they have in the real world. Maybe he could block the signal by wearing a tinfoil hat. So, while on Chad, getting help for Fandar, there's all these natural disaster type things that wind up taking place that force Han to finally realize he can't put off his feelings for Leia. He wants to be with her, he wants to marry her, he wants her to be his wife, and there's no time like the present. So he and Leia decide to elope. That's right, they decide to elope in this book, right? 3 years before Courtship of Princess Leia, right? Which hasn't been published yet. They decide to elope, and they go to, I kid you not, a place called Hologram Fun World. Yes, Hologram Fun World. One of the more ridiculous names of this era of Star Wars publishing. Something I would have expected from the Marvel era. The first Marvel era. Turns out when they get there that without telling them, Lando Calrissian is now the one running Hologram Fun World. While Zorba runs Cloud City, of course, on Bespin that he got ran off from. So he says, hey, I'll give you some Colt 45. Probably, and set you up with a great stay. But see, it won't be till tomorrow that you can get an actual marriage license, so chill, sit back, everything will be okay. They decide to go take in a show, which is going to be this Bith magician or illusionist called Bithabus. That's right, he's a Bith, and his name is Bithabus, the Mystifier. Only, that's not who it actually is. Zorba the Hutt has apparently found that Hologram Fun World is cutting too much into his profits and decides to act against it. Kind of like in a mall lockdown, Jabba the Hutt decides to act against Coghive 7 because supposedly the whole thing with Iram Radic is cutting into his profits. The Hutts tend to do this kind of thing. So like father like son, or like son like father, I suppose. Zorba goes to Hologram Fun World to knock out the competition, only then he learns that Leia is there. She's not actually dead, so his vendetta to kill her for killing Jabba is now back in full force. So he has Bithabas the Mystifier replaced by Kobak, who is another Bith, who is now an imposter, who then uses a, "Can I have a volunteer? You, lady. Come, nice lady, be my volunteer in this magic trip. Oopsie! She's disappeared," as a way to capture her for Zorba the Hutt. So she's taken aboard Zorba's ship, known as the Zorba Express. No, that's not a joke. It's called the Zorba Express. And it turns out, when she's there, that she sees his other prized possession, the carbonite block frozen Trioculus. That's right, the Trioculus in carbonite that was destroyed back in Mission from Mount Yoda, rescued by Hissa, brought to the Prophets of the Dark Side, and destroyed so the Supreme Prophet Kanan could take control of the Empire instead of letting Trioculus have a chance to do it, was a fake. The real one is here aboard the ship with him, so Trioculus is actually still in play. Which is something that, once again, is at least somewhat foreshadowed in the fact that he is in the Dramatis Personae here, as they're blowing more surprises for themselves for adult readers. Or for kids with a clue. So, turns out Lando has invited Luke and some of the others to go to this elopement-type wedding. Kind of defeats the point of eloping, right, if people are actually there and know about it. So, they're on the scene. They go to try to rescue Leia, only to find Zorba's ship pulled aboard the Moff ship, which is the Committee of Grand Moff's flagship. And there, they wind up meeting an individual that we thought might have been dead. But, of course, we didn't see a body of him actually being dead. Moff Hissa. Hissa at this point has had parts of his body, including his lower half with the little like sled thing, replaced after the whole acid incident back in Mission from Mount Yoda's environmental theme about toxic waste. Hissa, of course, then gets his hands on the Trioculus block and thaws out his previous leaders. Now, Trioculus is back in charge of this segment of the Empire. He wants Leia, wants her to be his Queen of the Empire, and she basically kind of leads him on as opposed to flat out saying no, because she doesn't want him to just leave her with Zorba. So, basically, Trioculus is now back in charge, has Zorba at his mercy, goes to Tatooine to the great pit of Carkoon Sarlacc, and throws Zorba in, though Zorba will be somewhat undigestible and come right back out as the book is ending. But our heroes manage to save Leia, and in the process, replace her with the human replica droid of Leia that was conveniently the way they set up the prototype right back in the beginning of the book. And when Trioculus tries to make a move on her, she blasts him with her eye beams, delivering a mortal blow to Trioculus. As for our heroes, they head back to Dagobah, and even though they couldn't get married right there on Hologram Fun World, the intention still is for Han and Leia to get married sometime in the very near future. Which, of course, at that time we were excited to see because we assumed that this meant this is how they get married, because they're married in the Thrawn trilogy. That's part of why that storyline exists in these books, because it could lead up to what we saw. It's meant to connect together. It's the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Unfortunately, it will be overwritten ridiculously quickly in Expanded Universe terms. But before we get to that point, which shows up in the next book, what about this one? Queen of the Empire. Is this book an essential read? Again, as I've said with all the other ones of this series, it's essential to this series if you're going to read it. However, is it essential in the grand scheme of things for official continuity readers, at least in the official continuity as it exists right now? No. No, it is not an essential read. It's been tweaked and such over time with retcons and whatnot. It's got some weird characters who don't wind up showing up again, really outside of source material and such. It's a cool part of early EU publishing and shows just kind of the weird directions things could go and how stories could wind up having messages embedded in them, kind of like smacking you over the head with them. But from the standpoint of EU knowledge, this really isn't going to give you much to work on that's going to tie in to future stuff, unfortunately. With that, we wrap up this episode with one book in this series left to go. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.